got 11 players here. Who wants to be captain? The consumer. Well, welcome everybody. You've heard the panel. I mean, you heard their names, and all achievers in their own spaces. Inspiring because they've all grown businesses and brands. I think very enviable achievements. I'm going to let Arunima start the discussion. And since we've got a lot of panelists, I think we've got, roughly about an hour on hand. Yeah? So I'll let Arunima start off.
Unless they push us off the stage. So, just to begin with, we were talking about a connected world, customer journeys, and we had a brief discussion earlier. So maybe some are repetitive questions, but for them to hear your views. So the new normal changed the face of market, the way you did business. Some of you had changed the course of how you were doing business. As Anubhav mentioned, it was B2B and then B2C was a new inclusion. So I would first want to know how customer journeys were interpreted in the new normal for all of you, and what streamlining, what tweaks and new things that you brought in for the consumer. So whoever wants to go first.
So we are I come from a brand called Something's Brewing, which is a coffee e-commerce marketplace. We are a bit lucky because we are a brand born during the pandemic. So as the habits were changing, as people were staying at home and waiting for meaningful experiences, that's when we were born. So our experience, in fact, was digital first, and it was all about how do we really engage with them in a digital format. So one very interesting activity we tried. Typically, the idea is, of course, to engage the customers in a meaningful way and to have them try out your product. Now, how do you do it in a digital way when everyone is sitting at home? In an offline format, we used to conduct this contest called the latte art contest, where people make latte art on their coffee, and then you take a picture, and or whoever is judging judges, and there is a winner announced. We did an online at-home latte art contest. So, and we had around 200 to 300 participants who logged in from their computers. They had to record a video of them making the actual latte art and then taking a picture of the latte art. The entire judging was online. So there was an event announced and the event was judged online. Winner declared online, everything while people were staying at home. So essentially the entire physical experience moved to a digital avatar. So that's what we did, and then, again, since we were born in a digital age, we could experiment with a lot of these formats online. I'm sure others have interesting stories as well.
Okay, let me tell you something which is very basic. I run a very basic business. I run a chain of salons. It's popularly called JCB salons, and of course, reflecting back to the 4 odd months when we were behind doors, I would say. So now if you want a haircut, or if you want your husband's hair to be cut, forget a lady, or you want your son's haircut to be, because it becomes very, very, it becomes irritating for the kid. So what could we do? So we started with the directors of our salons, which is about a very large number of senior hairdressers, not everybody. So we started conducting online classes for the consumer, for her son, right? And typically for the boy, because the girl's hair, it doesn't, you don't mind. Okay, but for the boy, young boy who starts becoming irritable, and for the husband also. So in fact, I was one of the one of the guinea pigs where my wife actually on video did a haircut for the first time, and so very interesting thing which was born. And of course, once the physical spaces opened up, everything was great fun. But I think what our industry has realized that there is a very strong on-demand, at-home service model, business model, which is emerging. They're a very large company. I'm sure all of us are aware of Urban Company, which has done very well. But for us who were traditional brick and mortar brands, we have actually kickstarted this whole division, which is kind of beginning to do well, better and better. Let's hear it from the others.
Yeah. So I represent a company called PinClick. We sell residential real estate. And luckily, unluckily, as the pandemic hit, we were kind of left hanging in between, because Unluckily, we were selling the highest value product in the value chain. You know, we were selling a home upwards of 1 crore. We were also selling products that most people were only buying once in their lifetime. So, you know, we weren't sure whether they can kind of take a decision online or they can't. But luckily, as an industry, it was so digitally not so mature that, you know, there was so much that we can potentially do in that industry. The consumer behavior today versus, let's say, 2019 has significantly changed, at least in terms of shortlisting. You know, while consumers still wants to come and touch, you know, we were discussing some times back, that people want to come and stand in the balcony and see what they visualize when they buy a home, whether the noise levels are as much as what they, you know, actually have been promoted or been advertised by the developers. But at least from a shortlisting perspective, a whole lot of tools and, you know, models have come in where the journey has shortened in by using those digital tools and digital models. So I think that way the shortlisting has become much faster, but they still have to do that offline bit.
So I'm Dheeraj from Campus Sutra. We are the biggest bootstrap fashion brand in the country, right? I think what digital has done is it has democratized communication, right? I mean, while I'm talking a little away from just the pandemic, because a lot of trends that we saw in pandemic might not be relevant today, right? But if you look at it overall picture, I think what we strongly believe in that capital used to be a differentiator in brand building overall, right? You go back 10, 15 years and you look at all the brands that got built, right? You look at Levi's, you look at any of the big brands that got built. They got built because they had the money to set up 1,000 stores in India. What digital did for a lot of brands that you see around is it made communication possible to the customer at a low cost. So now capital is no longer a differentiator. What is a differentiator is, you know, how well can you connect with the customer? How good are your creatives, right? What is it that you're putting in terms of content to the customer? How good your product is, you know? Just day before yesterday, we had this meeting with Kalyan, right, from Flipkart. And he was telling this very funny thing that one of the biggest detergent brand in India, they had to change one ingredient and it took them 10 years to get that approved, right? So with a lot of these established companies, any change that had to be done at a product level was almost impossible. And so as a customer, we were always getting the lowest common denominator, right? We were getting products which did not see any innovation, and only HUL or P&G could sell because they had those 40,000 stores from it, in which only they had distribution network, right? So I think what is happening now is one, innovation is becoming faster. You have brands who can innovate faster, who can get things faster to the consumer. You have the digital media which is making communication possible. You can reach the customer, and who's spending more, while it has some role to play, how well you're spending that money on the digital front, you know, decides your success, right? And I think this will keep changing, right? Pandemic border shift, again, there are some changes and there are, you know, some communication going back to the pre-pandemic level. And I'm sure 2 years later, whatever is happening now will not be the same. So it is about being nimble, understanding who your consumer are. We strongly believe, you know, a lot of times it happens for brands that we think that customer is somebody who's sitting in mass, right? And we try to come up with marketing strategies or product strategies which are like very, very away from the reality. So I always tell my team ki boss, hum hi a customer, right? So if you have to think what is it that it will appeal to you, and then accordingly have your product and communication for that segment. And I think that's what will keep evolving, and yeah.
I think I would like to add to Dheeraj's point here, since we are from the same industry. I come from the footwear industry. I run a brand called Chappers, and we make some kick-ass custom shoes. So I started my journey with just Kolhapuri chappals, and it was a very easy sell for us, since no one had ever seen like red Kolhapuris and blue Kolhapuris and neon Kolhapuris. So it was a very easy sell for us earlier on, but because customers would walk in the store and we would sell them products. But in COVID, what happened was there were no customers and there were no stores. So we developed India's first virtual footwear customizer, wherein consumers would be able to customize their shoes and chappals online on their phones, and we held a competition for the same. And thousands of customers applied for it, thousands of customers customized their shoes, their chappals, and that's how we got famous in COVID. So I agree with Dheeraj when he says that companies who adapt the fastest are going to be the companies that stay ahead of the pack.
You know, there is actually a word for this right now. It's called digital. It was coined back in 2014 by Harvard Business Review. Basically, what they meant there was the experience right now is both on digital and on the physical stores as well. This has amplified after our COVID situation here. So customers are coming in from Instagram. They are seeing products there, but customization could happen on the store. The sale could happen on the premises or it could happen online. So being able to be agile and nimble in your processes is what defines success in this particular scenario.
I am from Vedas Export. We are into decor field where we manufacture old decor into a new product line. So we have seen a lot of changes post-pandemic because decor is a field where people want to buy, go and take the feel and then buy. So to overcome that, we have designed a new website post-COVID where people can post their pictures and we customize their product and we put our product range into their houses and show them how it will look. And it's like a free service and people can opt for it. And we have seen a huge traffic in that where people see the difference. Okay, this company is helping us to set up our house and sell the product.
Hi, I'm Aishwarya from Listocity. We are a brand new online classifieds marketplace. So I have an advantage over all these people here who've started the company much more earlier. We are barely 1 year old. So we started the company post-pandemic with all the insights of pandemic lifestyle and the whole online culture, moving into digital space, that culture. We are well aware of this and we took the insights from there for building majority of our categories. So we have over 70 categories. Like properties, vehicles, thrifting, education, jobs, and even in jobs we have several different niches. So in order to cater to all of these people and keep it very relevant and digital, we have to make sure that we have all the details. The information is very, very rich because today's consumer, they don't even want to pick up the call. Like forget about going out. Everything now comes to your house, like to your doorstep. Now it's in the next stage, they don't even want to pick up the call and find out details. They want to see everything either on a chat or on the website itself because it saves them time. It's not only convenient, but also it's very, very efficient for all the consumers to do that. So how do we do that? So we thought about it so much while coming up with that to keep the whole pages and all the listings very, very deep and very, very informative, that you pick up the call and call that particular person only when you're 90% sure. So whatever you want to see is already there and you can practically list everything on the page. So I think we are at an advantage with the whole going digital spree.
Hi, this is Pushpin here. I'm from TechnoSport. So I think post-pandemic and pre-pandemic, if I compare for our brands, right, we were actually 100% offline brand. And today, when we look at our business, I think we are making a very strong investment in the digital. In the first pandemic, when the entire lockdown happened, right, and sportswear as a category is very interesting, right? Most of us think that sportswear is only for the people who play sports. But once the lockdown were lifted, we started getting huge calls from the Kerala distributor, right? And when we investigated, we found that all the fishermen in Kerala, they prefer our product, right? So I think in a way, understanding the consumer, right, which probably we had taken for granted, I think we never gotten into that. And that helps us to understand that, in the future, I think understanding consumer will be very important. And from that perspective, I think in the last 2 years post-pandemic, if you look at, I think there is a bit of overdose of digital communication, etc. So, how do you kind of personalize communication to the customer, or even the hyper-local, phenomena, which has started with grocery, right? In few quarters down the line, somebody somewhere working 2-hour fashion delivery, right? And that will become very important. So these are the areas probably as a brand, I think we are investing, but I mean, post-pandemic, the things are very different for us when the health and fitness has become very, very important for the consumer.
So one question I have for you is that for a lot of you, you sell products, and what I see is in the online space, how do you drive that price-value equation? Because I see a shirt on a picture. I don't know if it's 400 or 1,000. I mean, how do you decide that this is the product market fit? Because when you're selling a shoe, I don't know if it's going to fit me or not. It's a risk. I mean, I don't know what your coffee tastes like, but I've got to order. So how do you create that perception that there is value in my product? And at the same time, how did you come up with your product market fit when you started this company or the brand?
I think, Jaideep, in the last 10, 15 years since the digital commerce has come in, right? I think the perception about pricing has dramatically changed. And I come from an offline world, where even giving 10% discount during non-end of season sale was like you have to take the CEO's approval, right? I mean, today it's very different, and consumer look at pricing or MRP in a very different way. I think it's more about, and this one is particularly for the D2C brand. I think customer understand there's a fair value for the product, right? I mean, you can decide to, market at 4x and give it 75% discount, or you can be honest with your pricing. I think somewhere the fair value of the product as a concept is becoming very, very important. The consumers started realizing this particular shoe or this particular T-shirt, maybe, this is the kind of fair value, unless you are like Gucci or, or any other big brands, right? Where there is a different perception around the brand, different, value proposition around the brand. But as long as you are a D2C brand, you are trying to sell a decently good product at a certain amount of, value. I think fair pricing concept or honest pricing as a concept will become very popular. I think that's where the brands are probably also looking at pricing their product in that direction.
But so now I see customer has become very smart these days. They goes to all the platform and check out like, okay, the decor product or a shirt is how much price it is. It is not like a brand constant for us, because in a new brand like us, we are mainly into the product sizes which customer sees and the usability of the product. They want to see, okay, this product is for X amount, what is the use of it? So customer is very smart. And for our product range, we see the competitive price which is running into the market and what it fits the market and sell very fast. So that is our bracket of price range. And corporate gift which we do, we see what is the lower range, because corporate wants a bulk quantity and they want a lower range. So quality with pricing is the main factor which plays the main role.
I think just looking at pricing is a very, very narrow way of looking at it, right? Why do people buy unknown brands when you start, right? I think it's a change of mindset. People of our generation have a certain way of approaching when we buy things. If you talk to the Gen Z, if you talk to people who are 19, 20-year-old, their way of thinking is very different. They'll try anything and everything once, right? So I always come back and say this, building a 25 crore brand, especially in the fashion Lego category, is very, very easy, because that does not require you to get 100 things right. To take it to 200, 300, 500, 1,000 crore brand, that's when you call it a brand. Otherwise, you're just a commodity player who's selling online, and that's very easy to do. That's not a big deal, right? It's about how do you build a proposition for the customer, be it in terms of price, be it in terms of product, be it in terms of experience, over a period of time. How many customers associate with your brand? How many customers want to come back and buy your brand? एक बार तो आपने Facebook, Insta चला दिया, फोटो देखने में अच्छा है, आपने प्राइस कम दे दिया, वो कोई भी खरीद लेगा, right? And एक प्राइस पे सब कुछ बिक जाता है, right? Amazon में there is a, this is actually true that cow dung sells, right? There are people who need cow dung because of some whatever religious belief and difficult to get in cities. So you can actually go and order cow dung on Amazon and it'll get delivered to your house, right? So kuch bhi bik jata hai. But can you create a brand out of that? Maybe if you can. But it's about creating the story, creating the connect, making sure that the customers are coming back to you year after year. Otherwise, you're just a commodity player. It will stay for some time and then go to extinction.
So Anubhav, how do I know your coffee is good sitting in Chandigarh?
Yeah, so it takes time, right? So the discussion which was happening right now, the approach of online is to be seen in a very similar way as the original approach of building trust used to be with a retail format. If you're wanting to convert the customer in the first go itself, then you offer discounts, you offer things like cash on delivery. We don't do that. From day one, we've decided we are not that brand. We are after a long-term relationship with a customer. So all our communication, everything is around education. We want people to understand coffee first. Our sales funnels are longer. It takes 1 month, 2 months for people, multiple visits to the site to convert. But when they convert, they buy a very high value item because our products are 10,000 rupee onwards. It's an expensive, serious purchase. They have interactions over phones with us also. But then once the relationship is there, then you keep on ordering again and again because we offer a lot of other convenience. We have a wide variety. We have subscription plans. We have loyalty plans. We organize online workshops. So it's about creating an overall relationship with the customer rather than looking at one transaction and getting the best out of that.
Harsh, you want to say something on shoes?
The retail industry has taken a drastic U-turn, I feel, in COVID. Pre-COVID, people used to care about price. These days, I don't think the consumer cares about price. Pushpin was right when he said people care more about the fair value of the product rather than just the price of the product. So, for example, a consumer who pays 1 lakh rupee for a Versace bag feels it is a fair price for that bag. And a customer who pays 1,000 rupees for a campus shoe feels that product is worth that much. So I think companies need to define what their fair value of their product is and then stick to it. See, brands who constantly keep giving discounts are not creating a great brand image amongst the crowd. So, yeah.
I'll just quickly add to it. I think that's a great point. Consumers are like willing to pay for the convenience, and we've also actually tested this across different tier cities, not just the tier 1 city, which is always used to that convenience. Tier 2, tier 3, and like so on also, they are willing to pay for the convenience. Once you're able to establish your brand as somebody who can deliver on the convenience, then there's just no going back. But like once that the first impression of that is like failed and like that you're not able to achieve the convenience, then it's a very difficult story to like sell and like take forward. If this is achieved, I don't think pricing is.
Just one more point here, since you talked about tier 2 and tier 3. Earlier on, Amazons and Flipkarts and Mintras were all about tier 1, right? And now there are like Meeshos and people who are focusing on tier 3s. So just one example, a consumer from Solapur district, which is not a very very big district in Maharashtra, but bought a 25,000 rupee custom shoes for us within 5 minutes. So I think that is the power that tier 3 of India has now.
So Samir, we always talk of products, but you know, you run JCB, and for you a lot of the service delivery is on the site. So unlike the other folks on the table where they can send the product to the consumer, the entire customer journey is the reverse. I mean, what are the challenges for your business in this?
Well, I think we've stuck to the fact that you can only experience the best product in the salon. And we might be able to, we get a lot of customers who get, I want a hair color like this, or I want a haircut like this, which is all basically based from the internet. But we clearly discourage, and we say that we will not be able to produce or give you a replication of what you are bringing to us on the small screen. We will try and bring it as closer to possible because, you know, that can be doctored, it's Photoshop, but that's really not how your face cut is or how your face will get a haircut. So it's very important for us to promote this, and that's the reason why we've been able to have a stickiness of a very high level of some of the people here and in the audience. I'm very happy to meet them as loyal customers of the brand. So, you know, and that's where the service industry, at least the beauty industry, is going to always stay. Makeup necessarily is not going to suit what you see on the face, on the internet. It has to be created as per your skin tone, it has to be created as per your face cut, it has to be created as per your body structure, and that's how it is. So we don't overpromise, and we just don't take that. We can get you a replica, we can't get you a replica, we can get you slightly closer, but take our advice, we're the experts. That's as far as the services business is concerned. Also, I think in the product business, just adding my 2-bit, I think we all know what's happening in the BPC space. There is an overdrive as far as beauty products is concerned versus the consumption which happens in India. India is not even consuming barely a portion of what the brands are launching day after day. There's been a bit of a cool down now, but last 2 years we've seen an overkill of D2C brands, which is good for the consumer. But I think everybody's talking about the same thing, and brands would end up only driving their cost of acquisition very high by way of discounting, which is where the challenge today is. Today, consumer is getting a lot of products on choice, but what is relevant for her, you actually are confusing the consumer. So I think brands need to take a lot of responsibility in educating and not overcommitting. At least that's what in the BPC space we're wanting to do so. Digital is important, but I think India always for our sector is touch, feel, experience, and smell, and then only you take relationships forward. Yeah.
Manik, you run something which is a no-broker property advisory business, okay, where trust generally in the property zone is always low. And I know there are other players in the market as well. And you're a national player, okay, so people just know your website, okay, that's all they know. How do you go about building that trust in your brand and who you are?
So I think now, what has happened is there's a customer for every segment. And there's a customer for every proposition in India. As India is becoming more and more prosperous, you find everybody wanting to associate with some level of aspiration across whatever product or service you sell. It's no more a price-driven market. So, it's not that a customer is saying, if you're selling it cheaper or you're giving me discounts, I will trust you. It's a very service-driven or the outcome of the product which, builds that value that you really are able to imbibe in the customer. In our case, we are not the product manufacturer. We largely sell a DLF or a Loda or a Brigade or a Shobha, right? So in our case, unlike a manufacturing or a product organization which spends a lot of money in R&D, trying to constantly evolve, our R&D is largely on ensuring that our processes are built in a fashion where, one, we do not end up doing unscrupulous things, which is historically been associated with the industry that we've been in real estate. And two, we constantly keep ensuring that our customer journey becomes more and more smoother, becomes more and more transparent, so that the value for the customer is visible while he ends up buying that product. What we've done over the last 5-6 years is we've broken down the entire customer journey into a more process-driven scientific approach. So when I started PinClick, we hired a lot of people from real estate, and we realized that unluckily there was the demand was so heavy that nobody wanted to follow a process. They used to just sit down and people would come in hordes and buy. And that is why a lot of mis-selling used to happen. As the market changed from 2013 till now, there's governing bodies like RERA which has come. There are a whole lot of other things which have happened. Developers have gone, started getting listed. They've become far more mature. A lot of transparency started to come in the system. And hence, we started breaking the entire value chain and saying, can we now, right from, we hiring people who, we call them advisors, who kind of associate with us, the customers to sell, can we start hiring people who are non-real estate guys and reskilling them? So we spend a lot of time in ensuring that they get trained. They start associating with the culture that we want to build in, rather than people who've come with the experience. Can we break down the sales process into multiple smaller matrix, which allows a customer to also have a real-time transparent observation, and for us also to see where there's a problem, especially in a distributed system like ours. As you said, we've got offices in Delhi, we've got offices in Bombay, etc. These are all sales offices. So it's very easy for somebody at the field to play around with the system if your system is not very strong. So we broke down the entire value chain into saying, the sales life cycle will have a face-to-face meeting, then there will be a site visit, then there will be negotiation, then the customer will sit across the table. At every stage, we brought in technology not from a customer perspective, but from the efficiency perspective. There are brands who work on saying, I will improve the customer experience. We said we will improve the sales experience, and hence automatically the customer experience will become better. So at every stage, 200 guys, when they go out in the field, we know where they are, we know what they're selling. If they're sitting in a meeting, all the meetings are getting recorded wherever they're sitting. They have to switch on the app. The app allows them with a lot of content during the meeting, because when they're selling or they're advising, they have multiple products on offer. They might not be able to give all the details to the customer, but the app is listening to the content that is going through the meeting and throwing back suggestions during that meeting, which allows us to ensure that when you have 200 people, not everybody comes with a similar aptitude level. There might be somebody who's great, there might be somebody who's average. The technology there or the process there today helps us to ensure that everybody gets a level playing field. If somebody is smarter, he's able to obviously do a better job of it. Yeah. But it's just building those processes, and every day. Today we've got a team since last 3 years whose job is to ensure that month on month we create structures which build in efficiency. Their job is to ensure that if I did this in, let's say, 100 hours last month, can I do this in 80 hours this month?
Sure.
that's how we,
Yeah.
kind of build that level of transparency to the customer, which over a period of time translates into the.
It's perfect. Thank you. Harish, you work with clients across category, industry, solutions, and so on. As Freshworks, I mean, what advice would you give us to work around customer support, especially because I think customer expectations are changing with every season. Every week they're changing. So, what is your advice to us?
Okay, so customer experience basically, how we look at it, is a combination of two factors mostly. One is to look at the customer trends right now, like what are the customer behaviors looking like, and the second would be actually getting feedback from the customers and imparting into your journey. So we look at the proactive approach here first because that is easier to implement, yeah? So the proactive approach, consider the city we are living in right now. It's Bangalore. It's a city where we travel 3 hours every day to build products that will deliver stuff to you in 10 minutes. So that is the level of customer expectations that have been set on us. And obviously we know what was the reason that caused this. It was COVID-19. And in my humble opinion, we learned two things from COVID. One, it is utterly useless for us to wash these groceries that we get. And second, digital transformation is inevitable. So all of these companies, like the titans of the industry, they were able to quickly adapt to the changes, bring in new digital transformation. But the rest of the industry, it took some time for us to get to the groove of things, especially to the new phase of CX. So that brings us to two customer trends basically. First being, I want it right now culture. And the second is hyper-personalization, or you could say your contextual help basically. And how we can improve this is, in a survey that we took for nearly with 5,000 customers, we know that first response time, like if a customer comes to you, how soon you respond to them has the highest impact in the customer satisfaction ratings. A loyal customer is one that will stick around and will directly improve your revenue as well, right? And the second is this contextual help as well. So whenever a customer reaches out to you, they expect you know everything about them from the very beginning. So if I'm reaching out to you, I'm saying hey, my shoe was not fitting. You should not ask me what my size of the shoe that you ordered is, right? That is the sort of expectations that have been set on us from the customer side. So how do we improve these factors basically? That directly impacts that makes you meet your customer expectations basically, right? And one other important point is first contact resolution. So let's say I come up with a question to you, you reply quickly, but the solution was wrong. My entire trust on the brand is destroyed. So getting that right the first time is all that matters. So how can we go about this? One obvious way, and this is 40% of the people that we talk to, they prefer taking help on their own. This is Gen Z people. So they don't prefer talking to humans. So they get the help on their own using AI, chatbots, and whatever not, right?
Sure.
And the reminder, they would like a smart integration between how I talk to an AI versus if the AI is stuck, I want to talk to a human with a personal empathy, right? So this is where empowering your customer agents also comes into picture. So when you talk about customer agent empowerment, we are talking about providing them all possible information. It could be about your products, or it could be about the customer or your internal processes, all of which is necessary for them to properly address the customer queries, right? So
sounds good, yeah.
Yeah, ultimately, a happier employee creates a happier customer experience. That is our goal. I want to close this by just bringing in some numbers from a case study that we did with Dunzo, and this was during the COVID period. They were processing nearly 2 million orders in that time period. So we were anyway, everybody is online right now. So we ran a test to see using AI-powered chatbots, if the customers are able to be satisfied by the responses or not. The numbers were staggering basically. So we noticed that the average handling time, basically how long they take to come up with the resolution, went down from 4 minutes to a staggering 46 seconds. So that's a lot of headway that we built there. And we noticed that 50% of these queries were solved by AI itself. So the chances of making human errors, that has been reduced. AI can simply take over these queries which are normal and can be answered by anyone. And I think in the future, this number should go up. How do I know that for confidently? half of the pointers which I spoke to you right now was built by an AI.
Sure, thank you. So I have a question which is to anyone on the panel is, you know, whenever I look at the net and it says that D2C brands, if they have to grow exponentially, you can only grow up to a certain stage. After that, you have to embrace the physical world. So all of you, I mean, Pushpen, Harsh, Dheeraj, are you now feeling the pressure that you need to go out and also embrace the physical world because the customer is wanting to see you in the physical world?
No, I think first and foremost, companies need to understand what business they are in, right? Whenever we say D2C brands, somehow I've seen this confusion with a lot of my colleagues. They start thinking they're an online company. Online company is different. A brand or running a brand business is very, very different, right? So we have this joke, Campus Sutra mein ki yadi Elon Musk, enables us to sell on moon, we'll sell our products in the moon through the satellite, right? Hame koi problem nahi. So we in fact started as a digital first brand, but we made that shift 4 years back. So we have our products in 500 store-in-store across lifestyle, Shoppers, Central, Brand Factory, Trends, and then after that we went international. So we are the only Indian fashion brand to be present in 22 countries, right? So for us, it is about the product and the brand. It is not the channel. आज online बिक रहा है, कल offline बिक रहा है, परसों metaverse में बिकेगा, उसके बाद AR में बिकेगा, doesn't matter. There has to be a product proposition, there has to be brand proposition, and it needs to reach the customer. Wherever the customer is, in whatever form and format he is ready to take that, we will deliver that, right? But any brand who is getting caught in that online, offline debate, I think is losing the plot overall. Then he's running an online company, he's not running an online business. And online companies are a different business. You can't compete, right? If you're running a fashion business and you are only focusing on online, then you're competing with the likes of Myntra, which is not an easy job, right? You have to get that experience right. You have to spend in that much of money, get that entire experience catalog. It's a different ball game altogether. So brand business is different and online is different. And as soon as people in the D2C world realize that, I think it will do them all good. Otherwise, like you rightly said, 20-25 crore, that's the limit. You can't grow beyond that.
If I may add here, so you were saying it's different, but we're talking about a connected world. So if we are in one way talking about everything being together, how are you even saying that we are different, but you are catering to the same customer probably at these touch points? So if you can
correct. So what happens, right? Whenever you start as a digital first company, the DNA of the company is very, very different. I'll just give you the example of Campus Sutra, right? We started this business and there are 4 of us who co-founded the company. None of us come from the fashion background, right? And so when we built this business, we built it from scratch. What makes sense to the customer? Versus say Arvind or Madhura, they have a very, very fixed way of doing business. There is a PO, there is seasonality, there is a drop, there is that drop, right? That's not what the customer of today wants. When you say a D2C business or a digital first business, it is a way of doing business. It is in terms of how fast you are recognizing the customer trends, how have you built a company which is able to create products for that customer trends, how agile you are in terms of the channel, how connected you are in terms of with the customer experience. So when we always do this, which is very counterintuitive, that for an online customer, we try to reach them in an offline way. What do I mean by that? कि यदि किसी ने मेरे वेबसाइट से खरीदा है, तो वो जो पैकेजिंग उसके पास जा रही है या फिर वो जो कम्युनिकेशन जा रहा है, that has to create some touch and feel. जब उसको पैकेज मिलेगा तो उसको लगना चाहिए कि यार ये मतलब company is whatever, right? And whenever I'm going to an offline customer, so if somebody is buying from a Campus Sutra from Lifestyle, he needs to know that they have a huge digital presence, they have the technology enabled, they are a new age forward-looking brand. So we try to make it real that way, that whenever a customer is coming to us offline, we show him the communication online, and whenever the customers are buying online, we try to be as close to them and make it as real in terms of being offline. So at the end of the day, we understand that we are in the brand business, we are not in the channel business. So once you get that clarity across your organization, it really helps in taking some of these decisions.
Sounds good.
I just wanted to quickly add to the growth challenge, right? I think I have a slightly different point of view at a very high level. If you look at the fashion industry, particular to fashion, right, is a $100 billion industry, right? In spite of Amazon, Flipkart, Myntra, such big giants, right? The online share is only 15-20% today. The branded share is still 25%. It's not more than that. The rest of the 75% is basically unbranded, right?
Yeah.
So what will happen in the next 4-5 years is that, this 100 billion will become 200 billion, the branded share will become 40%, right? So almost like 25 billion to 40-50 billion, which is like 2-3x growth. I don't think, the big giants, all of us will grow, but there will be a lot of disruption will happen in the D2C space. A lot of D2C brand will come up and take this branded share, and also the existing demand will, change into branded, right? Jewelry predominantly 15-20 years, 30 years back, it was unbranded completely. Today, jewelry has become branded. Sari is completely unbranded today, barring a very few small percentage, right? So the point is that, when you look at the brand building opportunity, I think it still exists. Now the offline versus online, I think it's a matter of time, because I believe while online will continue to grow, but offline is important. It's like, going to a temple, right? God is omnipresent everywhere. You can, call God at home, but why do you go to the temple, right? You go experience the God, right? You feel the bhav of the Bhagwan,
Good,
right?
yeah.
Similarly, you go to a brand store, you feel the brand, right? It's very important to have a brand for the experience, but online will cater to the, more of a growing consumer segment, and it will drive the growth.
Well said.
I'll just add on to the what's happening in our industry. So for the first time, we are a services company. We've tied up with Tata Click, and very soon on Tata Click, you can buy haircuts, and you can go to your nearest favorite salon and redeem it there. So while there are product companies, we've just been the first company to enlist, to very soon launch the whole service business on an e-commerce platform.
Okay.
Let's see how it goes.
Thank you. I'm going to be mindful of the clock. I think we've got another 7 minutes, so...
I'll want to kind of quiz them a little.
Let's open it for the public. I think that is more.
Let's open it. Last question. It's a quick, on a scale of 10, like customer retention, customer acquisition, how do you rate these two? You talked about knowing your customer, talked about creating that vision, connected world, a lot of things. So, combining everything on a scale of 10, how do you rate customer acquisition and retention? What's more important for all of you?
I think if you're in early stage, customer acquisition is more important. If you're a slightly matured stage, I think both of them are important. If you're like very matured stage, I think probably retention will be very, very important, right? And I come from, like a large fashion portal, Myntra. Early days, we really, worked hard on acquiring new customers. But today, if you look at the majority of the business happens, I mean, no matter how many $1 million you spend today, everyone is aware of Myntra, right? Across the country, right? So from that point of view, I think, depending on the stage of the business, I think it will vary. But both of them are important, at what stage.
That's diplomatic. If somebody can just give some numbers.
I think it would be unfair to rate both of these, because none of us will survive if there is no acquisition or no retention. So I think first is acquisition, then is retention. So first you service the client, and then you keep servicing him time and again. So I think both are equally important.
Yeah, you said what is tougher, of course, again, diplomatic answer, but see, acquisition costs are going up for all of us. We all understand that. So which means that whenever you acquire a customer, you want to retain them. So I think that's what all of us are trying to do. Yes, keep acquiring, but once you acquire, don't let go of the customer. Keep the experience going, keep the communication going, so they stick and they don't go anywhere. So
I think retention is more important. That customer can come back and explore
My
more.
best man.
What I think. Personally, from Decor brand, retention is more so you can produce more unique designs and give them opportunity to come again and again. Acquisition is something like people will, if something unique is there, they'll come and explore for sure. But retention is more important for me.
It also depends on the kind of product that you have. If there is a repeat chance, for example, real estate, which is what we sell. It's not that every day the same customer is going to come and buy a house. So acquisition becomes, a little more important for us than retention, because the repeat is going to be maybe 4 years down the line. But if it's a product where, the repeat chances are much more, he's going to buy the shoes again, he's going to buy the coffee again, then, I think if your product is right, retention becomes important. If you know that you have a problem with your product, then you keep acquiring and burning the cash there.
Yesterday in a panel discussion, I remember one of the panelists said that the next 10 years is going to be like a rocking time for India, and we're all going to grow phenomenally. And then Palash somewhere said today that customers are getting smarter. So, I mean, you think, I know the market's growing, but do you think winning customers is going to get more and more difficult because they're getting smarter?
Yeah, of course. I think for our industry, I think she will always remain the queen of the business. And you have to up your game. And adding on to what you said, I think we only look at retention. Because I would put a 10 on 10 on that, because for our nature of business, you've got to do it on a monthly basis, So for us, it's very, very unique. But like his, it's a very different thing. But yes, I think we have to be obsessed. I personally believe in this word. You have to be continuously obsessed with your customer. 10 years, 15 years, whatever. I think if you brands work on this one or two keywords of driving obsession, they'll win.
Thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. I think we might have time to pick up one or two questions from the audience if there are any. The gentleman here.
Thank you. I'm Dhruv. I'm from one of the agencies in India. Now, in the panel, we had one of the questions we were talking about how D2C brand is digital first and then moving to a brick and mortar store after like hitting a threshold. In this scope, from a technology point, how do we see 10 years down the line experiential commerce taking over brick and mortar store with coming of COVID, people moving to digital, and then UPIs being another like hit in India in terms of payment. So from a digital scope for a D2C brand, is it more necessary, or like is it on a point that you have to go to a store, or you can adopt some tech like the experiential commerce where you can give them live experiences, not necessarily with metaverse, but some other technologies like VR tech, somebody like Facebook that's doing across the globe right now with the advertising, right? So I just want to understand from a fashion label perspective, from real estate being one of the key points in metaverse or AR VR tech, that you can give them live demos sitting at their homes, just from a commerce and selling point, and then again talking about the points of how turnaround affects these things in the future. I just wanted to know thoughts of the panel.
Are you getting a technology which makes people taste coffee at home? If you can,
not really.
I'm signing up today.
Not really, but see, obviously, experiential commerce, brick and mortars cannot replace the essence of
That's precisely the point. So it depends on category to category, brand to brand. Of course, there are AR, VR solutions for certain industries, but then every product category will have to live its own experience.
But if we talk about something like out of like digital advertising, the OOH, outdoor advertising, and then sensory marketing involved in that, where you actually give out flavors. For example, Burger King did a pretty good job in the US for that. If we take certain examples like that in food industry, like tasting coffee, but coffee before tasting, they smell the coffee first. So if that is something that brings out the points, and just wanted to know the thoughts of that.
I think all of these things will eventually help the customer from taking the decision faster, making the life cycle simpler for them, especially real estate. Some of these AR, VR things will help them shortlist the 5 projects that he wants to see. And then instead of spending 3 hours going on the road, jumping between Whitefield and Sarjapur, he could potentially just see the 2. So it'll save time for him, but it's going to be a mix of both those things. These are only going to accelerate the decision-making skill, but it's not going to be either of them. It wouldn't be that AR, VR will replace the physical experience, whether it's real estate or it's decor or it's anything. I don't think it's going to be either or. It's not going to be a binary thing.
Thank you. I'm sorry, but we have to close in now. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure having you here. Thank you for spending your time with us. Have a good day.
Thank you.